What is up, everybody? Bandit and Chad here for another Taco Tuesday. So today we're going to do a short truck update and go over some of the frequently asked questions that we get. So I realize that the channel is growing pretty well, and I couldn't be more grateful for all that growth. But a lot of you all who are newer to the channel, there are some questions that y'all are asking, and we'll try to clear most of those up for you today. So as of right now, we are in my truck, the TRD Off-Road Access Cab, and we're just shy of 13,000 miles. And overall, throughout my ownership in the past couple months, we've been right around 20 miles to the gallon. So the last time I went from school to home, about a 2.5 hour, 3 hour trip, depending on traffic and everything else. But I did have my bike on the back end. I was loaded down because I was taking some of my stuff home, but I did average 23.5 miles to the gallon. That was on mostly Interstate 81, traveling somewhere around 75 miles per hour and probably averaging 70 miles per hour, since we did have to slow down for traffic and other things. But overall, you know, decent speed. We were loaded. Like I said, I had my motorcycle on the back, and 23.5 miles to the gallon. Overall, that's probably about the highest that I've gotten. Day-to-day driving, I do get around 19 to 20. From school to my house is probably 8 to 9 miles. And most mornings, even in the cold, I have been getting close to 19 to 20.
So as far as my fuel economy goes in my truck, I do have the TRD Sport double cab long bed, and on my previous trip home, it's a little bit longer of a trip than his distance up 81, but I actually averaged 24.5. For some reason, it was above the EPA estimate, and I had my truck not near as loaded down as he did, but I did have me, my girlfriend in the passenger seat, and a few things that I was bringing back home for the holidays. And I was very surprised, and I was averaging between 70 and 75 miles an hour. So I was very surprised that I was getting 24.5. Now, whether I can attribute that to the front air dam, or my lack of really having a heavy foot, or I don't know what exactly, but right. It was a surprise to see that, and that's without running AC or anything like that. I actually didn't have any air running that whole time.
Right. In other news, I did have one of my subscribers call me on the phone this week, and we talked a little bit about the transmission update. So as many of y'all are familiar, there was a transmission update for these automatic transmission trucks, and basically what it was supposed to address is some of the lag that people had when shifting from reverse to drive, and just make overall driving a little bit smoother and everything like that. As I mentioned in my transmission update video, I would never say my truck was necessarily a bad shifting truck. There was a slight hesitation when going from reverse to drive or something like that, but it was never any of the big lurches or anything like that that a lot of people were complaining about. There were a couple hard downshifts where I'd be slowing down into a stoplight or something like that. The truck would downshift a little bit hard to engage that lower gear, but like I said, it was never anything too serious. However, after the transmission update, everything seemed to be fixed. They did update the software and kind of reset, you know, these are a learning transmission, so that they reset that back to the factory spec and sent me on my merry way. And basically the phone conversation that I had this week was, do you feel that the transmission has reverted back to its own ways, or is it, you know, still an updated truck and everything like that? I would kind of say some of both. You know, the update did change the software, as I said, and there's definitely no more of those hard shifts or lags between shifting from reverse to drive or anything like that. However, like I said, these are learning transmissions, and I feel like over time, as you drive them more and more, they're going to adapt to your driving style, and you know, they're never going to be exactly the same as the first day you picked it up or the first day you updated it or whatever. So I guess my question to you all now is, do you feel the same thing? Do you feel that your truck is the same as when it was first updated? Do you feel like it's getting better because of the software and that kind of thing? So just feel free to leave what you think in the comments below, and I'll be sure to read all of that. So we've had a couple questions here regarding the head unit and all the technology in the truck. So my truck is fitted with the advanced technology package, and basically what that adds over your standard truck is your blind spot monitoring and your parking assist. So when I'm backing up, the truck will beep based off of what's behind me, and it also has kind of a cross traffic alert where if someone's walking or a car's passing, you know, off one of my blind spots or off one of my corners, it'll let me know. I also have the blind spot monitoring in my mirrors as well. But also down here, you do have the dual zone climate control with heated seats, where normally you just have your one temperature control and so on and so forth. But as for the actual head unit, as far as connecting with your phone and everything like that, I do have an Android phone. Chad does have an iPhone, and it seems to work flawlessly with both. So this is a standard screen, you know, my recent calls, the radio, and the map of where I'm at. You can obviously click on the map or bring up a bigger map. You can go through destinations and all like that. But this map is all just what Toyota has programmed in from the factory, and seems to work really well. I've used mine on quite a few adventures, and it's always gotten me to my destination and back home safely, and everything seems to work out there. From whatever screen you're on, you can always hit the home button, and that'll take you back to where you started. You can customize the screen a little bit. I know Chad's does look different than mine and everything like that. You can also go through audio. Hitting audio once will pull up whatever you're on. So whether this is FM radio, but you can also pull up your Pandora or XM radio or whatever you choose to listen to. But you can also go into apps, and there you can see the navigation, Pandora, weather, everything else that's in here. You can reorder these, but the majority of the stuff that I use is found on the first page. So going back to apps, like I said, I do listen to Pandora quite a lot. This does connect to your phone through the Intune app that is found on the App Store, either through Google or through Apple, whichever you choose to have. But then you can pull up weather, go to current weather, and there's all the weather that you have. This does work through kind of the 3G or 4G or whatever internet you have with your phone. But there's your current weather. Go to 3-day, 6 to 12 hour. There's your current location, and you can kind of work through everything that way. So another question that we do get a lot is, what do we think about these tires? Obviously Chad's truck is a little bit different than mine, as it is a TRD Sport. I have a TRD Off-Road, and the TRD Off-Road do share the same Goodyear Wrangler Adventure Kevlar reinforced tires that the TRD Pros have for whatever reason. And the question is, am I happy with these tires? What would I consider switching to, and that sort of thing. I have, like I said, almost put 13,000 miles on these tires, and they are wearing really, really good. They really don't show any signs of wear, and overall they're holding up really nice. They're not overly loud on the highway, and obviously they're returning some decent fuel economy numbers. Are they as aggressive as what I would want? Probably not if I was picking my own tires. They are pretty good. If you have any questions about how I've dealt with these tires, feel free to check out all the off-road videos. I have pretty much covered them in about every condition that you can think of, other than deep snow, and I'm desperately awaiting deep snow. I am really excited about that. But in mud and everything like that, they do kind of cake up a little bit. In any kind of drier conditions, you know, whether it be on rocks or dust or just compacted dirt or anything like that, they do work really well. What would I consider if I wasn't going to buy these, and what will I consider next? Next, I definitely won't buy these tires again. They are, to me, more expensive than they should be for what they are, because I think you're paying for that Kevlar reinforcement. What would I consider next? I have had the BF Goodrich KO2s in the past, had those on my second gen Tacoma, and I was a huge fan of those. A lot of my friends do run those. It's a really quiet tire on the interstate, and it wears really nice, but it's also really aggressive with an aggressive sidewall, and it'll get you through a lot of conditions. Another tire that my friends seem to run a lot is the General Grabber AT2, and that is a little bit cheaper tire, still with an aggressive sidewall, and still kind of an all-terrain tire. We found that all-terrain tires really fit what we do kind of the best. You know, it's not a mud tire, and you don't have to sacrifice everything you would with a mud tire with a loud ride quality, and a lot of times they can get kind of slippery when the conditions get icy or wet or anything like that. For a daily truck that you're going to drive regularly, I would consider an all-terrain tire, and both the Grabber and the KO2 are fairly aggressive, and they are kind of made for mud and snow, and and kind of every condition that you could run across. They're not quite as street biased as these Goodyears that are on these trucks standard. Two tires that I personally don't have any experience with, but I would consider because I've heard a lot of good things about them, are the Nitto Ridge Grappler and the Goodyear Duratrax. You see a lot of those tires out now. The Nitto is a fairly new tire, but I am impressed with the overall design of the tire, and I would consider it. I think the Nittos are a little bit more expensive. Like I said, with the design and everything like that, I think it would at least be something that you should consider. Obviously, those are just kind of the all-terrain choices, the more aggressive end of the all-terrain lineup. And obviously, if you were more interested in mud tires or something like that, you could obviously, there's tons and tons to pick from, but those are the tires that I would kind of lean towards if I were you.
Another frequently asked question that we have gotten is, why did I change my oil as early as I did? My truck was at about 7,000 miles when we changed the oil, and that was more for peace of mind kind of thing. It doesn't say in the manual or anything that our trucks come with any specific type of break-in oil or anything like that, but it does say to change the oil every 10,000 miles. We just changed it early because, you know, it would make us feel better just to see if we could see any shavings or anything that could be going wrong in the engine, to catch it earlier on. And chances are we will probably be changing our oil earlier than every 10,000 miles, just because we are so used to changing it earlier, and it's probably better for the life of the truck.
Another thing that we did happen to think about while we were out here is the leaf spring endeavor that we went through. So as you may recall, Chad and I both had squeaky leaf springs after we took our trucks off-road initially, and we took them back to the dealer. Both of us had the entire leaf pack replaced, under warranty, you know, no questions asked really. And since it's been completely silent, so if you are suffering from squeaky leaf springs, it's not your fault. They say the tolerances are slightly too loose, and that causes the squeak. But with the new leaf packs in, there is absolutely no squeak, and everything seems to be good to go. All right, so that pretty much wraps up this week's video. If you did have a question and it did not get featured in this video, I do apologize. We do try to answer all the questions in the comments, so if you haven't gotten your question in the comments answered, I may have accidentally skipped over it. Please don't take it personally, just try again. Like I said, I do try to answer all those. For some reason, YouTube has been a little bit interesting lately, where a lot of the comments don't show up immediately, especially if you private message me. So if you don't get answered immediately through YouTube, maybe try me on Instagram or something like that, and follow me through that. You know, the more ways that you ask the question, the more likely it is for me to see it. And again, I am trying to answer them all. I'm not intentionally ignoring you at all. So thank you all very much for tuning into this week's video. We do have a lot more in store, both for the rest of the Taco Tuesdays and for future mods and everything else. So be sure and hit those subscribe buttons and the like buttons and everything else, and stay tuned for more videos. So thank you all very much for watching. Have a fantastic week, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
See you guys.